Well, I think the main thing about John is he's not just an academic. He's an academic who's used his skills to get results from courts.
Lots of lawyers sort of focus on what's immediately in front of them. He's able to look at things from a broader perspective.
He's truly a remarkable person, very, very intelligent and very sincere and committed.
John's career has really put him in the center of a lot of not only controversial issues, but important issues. From recycling to surface coal mining to Pennsylvania's Environmental Rights Amendment to our Constitution, climate issues. I mean, all those things, he was in pretty much the beginning, the ground floor. I first got to know John Dernbach when we both worked at the Department of Environmental Resources, the predecessor to DEP today. Pennsylvania at that time was running out of landfill space.
We have concerns about becoming the dumping place for waste from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island.
There was a growing recognition that landfills needed to be regulated more carefully, more rigorously.
He upgraded substantially the performance standards, and so there have been a lot of improvements.
His involvement also made a huge difference in regulating surface coal mining.
The remining program was actually begun by John. You were trying to encourage mining companies to go into areas that had been previously affected and had not been properly reclaimed, and to mine the coal, but in the end correct some of the mistakes that had been made by others. And that frankly has made a big difference in Pennsylvania waterways.
Things are different in Pennsylvania because of his involvement.
At the smallest level, we have recycling cans at our front doors, and we put them out once a week. And John was as instrumental as virtually anyone I could think of in making that happen. At obviously the biggest level, we now have what may be the most powerful and far-reaching environmentally protective constitutional principle in the United States.
More than anybody else, through his scholarly work at Widener, John has kept Article 1, Section 27, the Environmental Rights Amendment of the Pennsylvania Constitution, alive. It was passed over 50 years ago, but it hadn't been used to its fullest extent until recently, and I attribute a lot of that to John's ongoing work.
He was, I think, still in high school when the amendment passed in 1971. But by the time he got to Pennsylvania, the court said anesthetize it with a Payne versus Casab test. He became interested in Article 1, Section 27, and we began to communicate a lot, asking me about it.
He, for quite a long time, recognized that it was not going to be an overnight campaign. It was going to take a lot of diligent work. It was going to take a lot of clearing the field, looking for the right case, the right advocates, the right arguments to make.
And when the court got around to the Robinson Township case in 2013, John's efforts paid off.
He actually wrote a very important law review article. His article was quoted extensively in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision that changed its usage up until today.
For a long time, it was, a book on a dusty shelf downstairs in the basement of the library, and now it's on every environmental lawyer's desk.
In terms of more recent interests, I think he's obviously jumped into climate issues.
He was an early climate change believer. His role and value at a minimum has been keeping it on the top of the conversation at every opportunity.
He's quite the author. He has been an editor for a bunch of volumes.
He's published 20 books. He's written dozens of law review articles and speeches.
John wrote a textbook on legal writing that continues to be used in many areas still today. And so he understands the value of the spoken and the written word. He certainly tries to persuade, not overwhelm with sort of blunt force.
He could really be a pain in the butt asking questions of people, but he did it in sort of a polite way, not an adversarial, pointed way.
He sees the value in almost, I would say, sort of a Quaker orientation. Let's all sort of solve this together.
He's very active in being a mentor.
To the best of my knowledge, his students love him. While respecting appropriate boundaries, he is, more of them than he is of a different class.
I think John is motivated by the greater good.
He'd be Burns. He'd get a real desire He pumps adrenaline to protect the environment. It's just really the fire that keeps him going.
It seemed sort of deeply woven in his psyche, whether he got it from his parents, his early reading, or he was just born with it. I don't know.
It's always easier to do something you like rather than something you're forced to do. He likes what he does.
I think he's the right guy to get this award.
If he achieved nothing, he deserves an award for having actually dedicated his entire life in this field and in this direction. As we've established, his efforts have not been for naught. Those are all accomplishments for 3 or 4 lifetimes.